And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jacob at 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Thank you for making us a part of your Tuesday. We were here on Monday, but if you missed us, thanks for, hopefully you had a nice long weekend.
Hope you didn't listen yesterday because we are doing the same show today.
Exactly. This is actually a replay. Believe it or not. But we scrubbed all the Labor Day jokes and complaining.
Yeah. Christian did some editing. We appreciate him doing that.
Exact same show.
A couple of new ins and outs. It's going to be quick.
It's going to be, it was pretty easy to do. How about the great Jim McMahon coming on the station today?
Pretty awesome, man.
How cool is that? Way to go, Hatch.
Well,
way to book that up. On the week of the BYU SMU?
Yeah.
Isn't it pretty crazy that that might be the biggest comeback in the history of sports, not just college football? Or the most unlikely? I mean, I don't know what tag you want to put on that. But the fact that they won that game and that Lavelle Edwards told the story on these airwaves multiple times about how Jim refused to come out of the game so that they could punt. And Jim called it genius, but his genius was, all right, Jim. All right, man. I'm not going to throw down with you. Sure, if you feel that strongly, get back out there and win the game. And he did it. It's incredible. Incredible story. Incredible part of our sports lore around here. And cool that Jim is willing to come on and relive some of it. Pretty awesome.
It is the magic of college football that really doesn't exist, I don't think, in any other sport. Now, it helps certainly, of course, that was a bowl game because it had some extra meaning there. But there's a lot of people who probably watched that game who aren't BYU fans or SMU fans or whatever, just kind of have a rough memory of it. And they're like, oh, yeah, it was a heck of a game. It was a good game. The same way that we watch crazy games every year. There's a crazy game. But truthfully, if you're a fan of that game, it lasts forever. That memory lasts forever. Utah beating USC at the Coliseum with a Bryson Barnes scramble is something you'll remember forever. I will remember talking to Dalton Kincaid on Monday after he went for 230 yards against USC at Rice Eccles, right? Yeah. I mean, it was just, you get those moments as a fan. That's where college football still has a magic that, you can look at the Jazz and the Miracle in Miami and Paul Millsap hitting all those threes. It was a great game. It was just regular season. It just doesn't have that cachet. It just doesn't. And, of course, they play 82 games, and the pro aspect of it takes a little bit away from it. But, man, the magic of college football remains strong to the – I mean, when was that?
Well, that was like, what did he say,
40 years ago?
No, 80? Is that right?
40-plus years ago.
I mean, yes, crazy things happen, and I get your point about college football, but not that crazy.
No, not that crazy. That is one of the all-time great comebacks.
And SMU was a freaking dynamo.
Yeah.
They were one of the best teams in the country. They had Craig James and Eric Dickerson. Incredible. And Jim said, PK asked him a question. Lavelle was really proud of the fact that he made BYU an event. And Jim had it. He said he made BYU national. That's the biggest thing that he played a style to make BYU get noticed, to not only win football games, but look at what this program is doing out there with this offense and throwing it around and doing things differently, and all of a sudden beating SMU. I mean, it's incredible. Like what Lavelle Edwards did at BYU with Jim McMahon and Steve Young and all these players that are just legends. We had a legend.
Yeah, we did.
On this morning.
Yep, very
Absolute
cool.
Absolute legend. And it's a cool part of the history. We've got a great sports story along the Wasatch Front.
We've been lucky. We have, and there, of course, there's examples of it. I mean, Mark Pope just did it. Urban certainly did it. We have just not been a springboard state as much as you would think, where, I mean, look at every good coach has coached at Cincinnati at one point, it feels like, right? And maybe Brian Kelly's not a good coach, but it is such a job that you take to launch into another job. It is such a good springboard job, and there are those college basketball schools as well. We're in pretty good shape where we get good coaches and we've held on to them. And I know we could play to death we've had the best coaches consistently in the state and how well they've done, but we never devolved into that springboard job type of state.
Well, first of all, I have a couple theories on this, Ben, because
and I should say, Utah State really is a springboard job. People have had success there and taken off,
and haven't had success there, and not stuck around either. But I've thought about this because I think there are multiple factors. One, this is a great place to be. Like, it's a great place to live for a variety of reasons. Like, I think part of the reason Kyle Whittingham has never taken a big job at Tennessee or whatever, that was the rumor back in the day, right? It's because he likes living here.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons. He enjoys living here. I think that's a big part of it. Jerry Sloan enjoyed living here. Now, he went back home to Indiana in the offseason and all that stuff, but Jerry Sloan lived here after he left the Jazz. He liked living here. I do think that is part of it. The other part of it is there's something in our culture, and this is totally a theory. We don't like to fire people. Like, I'll say this about the Larry Miller Group, working for them for 10 years. Like, I mean, they made difficult decisions on employment. I'm not saying that they didn't, have to fire anybody. But there was a company that really did not like to fire people.
Yep.
And I think there's something like there's a loyalty to it. Rick Majerus had some pretty egregious behavior.
Of course.
And just to look on the other end of the scale for a second. And we weren't out to fire Rick Majerus.
No.
Not until
he really pushed it.
Well, and the program was in a different place.
Yeah.
And it was a couple years removed from going to the national championship and all those sorts of things. But Larry Miller was not, he was loyal to Jerry Sloan. He was not looking to fire people. Even Frank Layden, the transition from Frank Layden to Larry Miller is amazing. Like, that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
How Frank was like, I'm going to hand this winner to Jerry Sloan.
Yep.
Because he can do a really good job with it, and I can help in other ways.
He's like George Washington.
I would not go that far. But that's a pretty incredible story, right?
To wear the wig.
The Millers gave Ty Corbin 3 years. They did not want to fire Ty Corbin. That is not something that they wanted to do.
They did not.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Kevin O'Connor transitioned to Dennis Lindsay, and they called that a semi-retirement or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, by the way, I mean this entirely complimentary. I like that about us. You know what I mean? Even Lavelle, toward the end, had fallen off. But there was no way they were running out the great Lavelle Edwards. You know what I mean? Now they'd run out the great Norm Chow, no problem. Do that tomorrow. But not Lavelle Edwards,
Yeah, there's certain guys you can't. Roddy Mack on the Ute preview show the other day was so funny and was talking about how he knew they were in a spot where they had to figure out if they could win games to close the season, and they turned to Alex Smith and they were like, man, this is dicey because if we lose, we're going to get fired. And he says, we ended up winning out or closed the season pretty strong, and they fired him anyways. He was great.
Part of the reason was because he played Alex Smith and burned his red shirt.
Right. But
which didn't turn out to matter in the long run because Alex Smith left for the NFL early, but
it was funny. It was a good story.
Listen, I bet you if you ask Chris Hill, he did not want to fire Ronnie Mack.
No, no one wants to fire Ron McBride. Nobody. Jazz, we're lucky they never had to fire Jerry. Not that I actually think Jerry was particularly close to needing to be fired. Jerry was never at that point where the league had truly passed him by. Obviously, his health was deteriorating behind the scenes, and we didn't know it. But, yeah, lucky the Jazz didn't have to make that decision. San Antonio's in this weird spot with Greg Popovich where it might be like, hey, Greg, come on, man, you're 75, and Victor Wembanyama's trying to win a title, and I'm not sure you're getting through the way you need to.
No, they need to transition him to a front office role, which is how
Where he started.
which is how you push out legends. But no, Jerry did the Jazz a favor in that sense, I suppose. I don't even know if they ever would have gotten to it, frankly.
Yeah. It would have always been his decision.
Yeah.
Always would have been his decision. Which you lose sight of how to do it when it's your job. It's really hard to step away from something when you're in power or making great money or are famous. That's why the Witt decision is so interesting. When he decides to hang it up.
And it's his decision. Honestly, the Utah could go into a period of mediocrity and they wouldn't fire him.
I think that's probably accurate. It would have to be bad stuff happening up on the hill, and that's just not Witt's program.
I think that actually plays into the strength of sports around here, that culture or whatever it is, throwing around theories. I do. I think the fact that you have consistency where Quinn Snyder can be here for, what was he here, 10 years?
Something like that, 8, 9, yeah.
That's forever.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
In the NBA.
Oh, he was the, second longest tenured NBA coach by the time he was done, only behind Pop?
And had
maybe third behind Spoelstra, who got hired like a month before him.
They were super patient with him to turn it around with the team and the situation that he got.
And he could have stayed.
And he could have stayed if push came to shove.
He would still be the head coach if he wanted to be.
I don't know. Is that true? I honestly don't know.
I don't think anyone was going to move him out of the way. I don't know if Danny Ainge was going to get rid of Quinn to install his guy. I don't think that's what happened. I do think Quinn realized it had run its course. And I don't think Quinn saw eye to eye with everybody. I mean, we know Quinn didn't see eye to eye with everybody. But a lot of that was with Dennis Lindsey. He may have liked a fresh start, but I don't think he wanted to do this rebuild. Coincidentally, that's where he has landed. Somewhat in Atlanta.
Locke told us it had nothing to do with the rebuild. I asked him about that a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
That not wanting to go through the rebuild was not in his reasoning.
I'm sure there's a lot of reasons. That might be true.
Well, it certainly would explain the Hawks job more. That he took that knowing it was going to be a rebuild.
Yeah, we'll see where they go.
And he wanted to be a part of it. Because that was always strange to me. Not to get lost
Derailed.
in this sort of thing. But the fact that Lavelle Edwards was allowed to be innovative and stay and have these coaches and coach the way he wanted to, and not to mention navigating the complex world of the honor code at BYU with players like Jim McMahon is pretty amazing. It's an amazing story. And BYU still reaps the benefits today.
Yes, they do.
It's why they sell out that stadium every week. It's why there's so much passion. It's why there's, grandkids and kids everywhere being raised into honor. It's why quarterbacks want to still go to BYU.
And to pick up a conversation we left yesterday, because this is just a re-record of what we did yesterday on Labor Day, Witt has evolved a lot. There are still the Witt staples, which the staples are strong. But, we've talked about NIL and recruiting and how that could have washed him out of college football the way it has washed certain guys out of college football, or they've been so stubborn that it has eliminated their advantage, a la Dabo Swinney and Clemson. Witt has just continued to evolve. Now, he's held on to the things that he knows are sacred, that he demands from his team, and obviously it's the defensive excellence that they've had really since day one that he was here. But he has continued to monkey with it on the offensive side of the ball until he did find something that worked, and good for Witt. He kind of trusted Andy Ludwig to do what Andy Ludwig wants to do.
I don't know if 2010 Witt would have evolved.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate?
I think he's much less of a control freak now.
Yeah.
And it's actually other people evolving and not really him.
Okay. So how did he get there?
He had grandkids.
Sure. Right. That's evolution, though, right? That's a form of evolution. You changed as a person.
And he got the ultimate job security.
He did. He got the best contract
after he turned around
in college football.
After he turned it around and started winning in the Pac-12, he got job security. He actually should have had it, honestly, more so after the Sugar Bowl thing. But he came close to losing his job after those 2 years. I guess his second and third year in the Pac-12, which seems amazing. But after he turned that around, he wasn't going anywhere. And so, like Jim McMahon said, one of the great things about Lavelle Edwards, and this is absolutely true, is he hired really smart people and then he let them do their jobs. Well, that's really easy to do when you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
That's really easy to do when you're not even competing with them. Does that make any sense? Remember who was going to get Witt's job when he was about to get fired? Do you remember who the rumor was that Chris Hill had in his pocket because he was at Wisconsin at the time? Gary Anderson.
Yeah.
Witt's guy.
Yep.
You know, there's a certain amount of that on staffs too, right? And so, but when you hit legend status and ain't nobody coming for the king and I'm not going to get fired, it's easy to be like, yeah, Morgan, go do your thing, bro. Go put your stamp on it. Go evolve with the NIL. Go evolve with the transfer portal, whatever. Just give me players and I'm going to do the stuff I want to do, which is the other things that you're alluding to, right? The constants of the program and the culture.
Yeah.
Because that's what he's really good at it. And he meddled so much in the offense back in the day, Ben.
He did.
And then you get to the Andy Lundwig. It's because he had job security. It's because they could bring Andy back and be like, Andy, yeah, knock yourself out. Whatever, dude.
Ironically, the thing Witt is best at, he hasn't messed with, which is the defensive side of the ball. Now, maybe that's just because his presence is so felt on that end. I have to talk to Steve Bartle about it.
He messes with the defense.
He does, but he has never said, all right, Morgan, you're upstairs. I'm calling the plays the rest of the way.
But if
even though Morgan is upstairs, right?
But listen, there's more than one way to meddle. Listen, if Morgan would walk into Witt's office and said, I had this great awakening in the offseason, coach. We need to run the 3-3-5 stack.
Yeah.
Witt would look at Morgan and say, that's not what we do here.
I'm never going to do that.
That's not what we do here. Next question.
Now, last year, Neil Brown takes over offensive play calling, right, at West Virginia.
Uh-huh.
Like, Witt's never done that. Witt has never been like, I'm consolidating all my control to save my job. He's never had to be in that spot. Or at least, maybe he did do it in the early Pac-12 era and had more control. He was certainly the special teams coordinator at one time, if I remember correctly.
Listen, Gary Anderson wasn't even a defensive coach until he came back to Utah the second time to be on Witt's staff, which is an interesting story in and of itself.
Yeah.
But Gary turned out to be a fine defensive coordinator, too. Don't get me wrong, but Witt was the
guy.
The guy, yeah. and still is. And now Morgan and Gary and all that, Kalani is long list of defensive coordinators now who've had success. They learn these things. I mean, yeah, but it still is thing. I mean, you call it meddling or whatever. But in certain situations, they're calling plays because that's what you do at Utah.
Yeah, maybe 2015 when John Pease was defensive coordinator. Maybe Witt was certainly calling the plays, and John was just being charming John Pease walking around. I'm sure he's doing work, but just fun to have around.
Right.
But Witt was.
But he's not that. And I think that's personal evolution combined with job security.
Yeah.
I think when you're still grinding because you're still trying to make it, it's a little more difficult to have that, to evolve,
But he hasn't turned into Howard Hughes with his feet in tissue boxes, locked away. You know what I mean? He just hasn't been consumed by his own genius. Witt hasn't. And his own power, and that he could continue to demand more and more from the program.
I would say, and I often hate devolving BYU conversations into Utah conversations, but like his magic is his message hasn't been lost on the youth. If you want to talk about evolving, where Frank Beamer didn't evolve is because he stopped being able to identify with his players.
Yeah.
And his message got lost, and it got stale for whatever reason. And the people do their own thing when the message gets lost. He's figured out a way to translate his message to his players throughout multiple generations. And that is not easy to do. I mean, you have to talk about like straight fire and stuff.
No,
but when he took the job, he was talking about being groovy. You have to
bell bottoms on.
That's difficult.
No, and you know what? Credit Witt, because he's also had to do it through horrendous adversity that the program has faced. Moments like losing Ty Jordan and Aaron Lowe. Witt absolutely met those moments the exact right way and became fatherly. I'm not trying to overblow it, but he felt that way. You know what I mean? He felt like he had total control over his program and was a safe spot in the program and stability in that program when it was at an all-time low point emotionally. And I think he evolved with that as well, and he met that challenge and did it well. He's just done those things consistently very well. So we talk about, legends in the state, and I think this certainly applies to Lavelle and what he was able to do with his players as well, but Whit has done it.
Stay tuned. We'll have top 3 stories coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Don't miss your chance to win big every week on the station. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win a pair of tickets to go see Def Leppard, a Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater coming up September 10th. Listen to the KSL Sports Zone all day on Wednesday for your chance to win. Time for the top 3 stories of the day, KSLSports.com. Brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers, 2 locations to serve you, one on Winchester Street across from Fashion Place Mall, the other at Traverse Mountain in Lehigh. All right, Christian, where are we starting today?
Number 1, BYU takes down Southern Illinois and looks good doing it.
We did talk about this some yesterday, Ben, but realizing it was a holiday and a lot of people were off doing other fun things, we thought we'd dive back into the BYU game. And kind of the theme yesterday was BYU. I thought BYU showed itself very well, and I thought Jake Retzlaff really showed that he has improved from last season, which is very important.
Yeah, I think he needed to make that jump. I think he needed to show that investing in him the offseason, sticking around, having that continuity was going to be a plus for him. And it felt like it was a plus for him. It looked like the things that were at times weaknesses last year, specifically throwing the ball, knowing when to throw the ball versus tuck and run, which he really didn't do a whole lot against Southern Illinois, was improved. And he was able to show that. So you like his ability to make big plays with his arm. That's going to be critical. If you heard Whit yesterday in his Monday press conference, he just talked about how critical chunk yardage is to being able to score. And Jake Retzlaff at BYU seems like he's going to be able to make some of those plays. And I guess that was the danger that I worried about with if he was going to be mostly focused is running the ball. So he's just not going to get those chunk plays. And you need chunk plays to make it easy on your team because I still don't know about BYU's defense. You need to be able to score points in the Big 12 if you're going to win games. You're not going to hold teams to 13, 17, 21 points every night at BYU. So you got to be able to score, and it seems like it's trending in that direction.
It needs to. And yeah, trending. It had a very different feel than Sam Houston State last year, which I think is certainly a positive thing. And I thought the offense appeared to be a little more creative and a little more wide open. And it wasn't necessarily, even though Retzlaff had, 8 carries?
Yeah, 16 yards.
It wasn't necessarily him being the run game component that I thought it was going to be. It was more than that for sure.
No, in fact, you saw it on the other end where Southern Illinois' quarterback was able to get out and had, over 100 yards rushing. That becomes a little gimmicky. I mean, it was Nate Johnson last year. Not that I ever thought Retzlaff was going to be Nate Johnson last year, but that becomes an easy fallback for quarterbacks who don't trust themselves to throw the ball or an offensive coordinator who doesn't trust his quarterback to throw the ball. And I thought A-Rod did a nice job empowering Retzlaff to use his arm to make those plays because BYU has playmakers at wide receiver.
They do. It's probably their best room.
Get them the ball. Get those guys the ball. And you know what? Sometimes you just have to take some shots and throw the ball up and let them go make a play on it. And you're going to face teams who your receiver talent is better than the corner talent. So go win that. It's not a 50-50 ball every time. Maybe it's 60-40 just because you have the better player. So I think you've got to empower him to make those types of opportunities. And doing it in game one to build up some confidence was a smart move. And I think that is something that BYU should have going into what's going to probably be one of the more critical games of their season against SMU on the road. Probably determine the outcome of their season.
Don't put a little pressure on it, Ben. A non-conference game determine the outcome.
If you're trying to go to a bowl game and you're counting every win and you're thinking you're looking at 6, this is one of them. This is one of the games you really have to win.
I think they can win. I don't know why the Magic Vegas predicting wizard has it such, 11 points or something like that. I mean, SMU didn't show me anything early in the season, right?
Agreed.
So I think BYU has a real chance. I don't think their season is sink or swim based on a game against SMU, but
No, and you could make it up, and some teams are going to be better, and some teams are going to be worse in the Big 12, so we don't know exactly how those chips are going to fall, but we circled this game really early in the offseason.
yeah. Well, we said that this back-to-back against SMU and Wyoming was going to be difficult, and it is. Maybe not as difficult as it once seemed because the Pokes didn't look terrific.
Wyoming looks like they stink. But Wyoming is going to want to beat up BYU at home. I mean, that's a very personal game for Wyoming.
Yeah, they might stink, though.
Yeah, but you know what? Arizona might not be as good as we think. Arizona has talent on the offensive side of the ball. They certainly seem willing to give up points. So, maybe BYU wins that game at home where we hadn't previously accounted for BYU being able to win that game at home. So, yeah, I'm not going to say that this is a make or break. You lose, you're not going to a bowl game for BYU, but it's pretty critical. And I think having the momentum that they have, where I don't think SMU should have that same confidence, BYU should feel confident going in to game 2, which is important.
Yeah, it is important.
That's what you needed. If you had a 14-0 and you thought, oh, here we go again, you'd feel rotten. And there's no need to feel that way.
Nope. They showed well. All right, what's next?
Utah State head coach Nate Dreiling opened up on the injury to quarterback Spencer Petras.
Yeah, so Spencer's still working through his injury still day by day. So hopefully we have him this weekend. He's an extremely tough kid. We'll be working through that. We'll know more later on today.
I'm just anticipating we're going to see Bryson Barnes. Listening to the interview yesterday with Hans and Scotty, you can go back and find it at KSLSports.com or download it on their podcast. This is what he said. He said it's day to day, and they're going to try and figure out how it's working there. Looking at the injury, it seems like an ankle something, and I would bet we see Bryson Barnes on the road at the Coliseum.
Okay, I have no clue what the situation of the injury is. But we may not see him for the rest of the season, honestly. Because I don't believe coaches ever, when they talk about this sort of thing. If Cam Rising taught us anything last year, it's that don't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
It's out until it's not. But I hate that, he may play because they want the other team to have to prepare for 2 quarterbacks at very least. And it's just, I don't know. It's frustrating to me. Just don't talk about it. No, we're not going to talk about it. See, Wib would say, we don't talk about injuries, but then it'd be like, yeah, Cam Rising could play this weekend. Well, that's talking about the injury. Just say, you know what? We'll see when he gets back. Does that not frustrate you?
No, I totally get it.
I'd prepare for the pig farmer for the next month.
Well, that's what they're doing. That's why they're still mentioning Spencer Petras and are going to every time he shows up on Hans and Scotty until the end of the year.
He could be out there in a dang cast, and they'd be like, well, he might be playing this week.
We've got him as day-to-day.
Day-to-day.
I want USC to have to think, well, Spencer Petras is a better passer, so we're going to have to account for that, or do we account for Bryson Barnes' legs, where he's going to be more dangerous?
You know what? In super secret practice that nobody ever sees, he actually looks dynamic.
Now, unfortunately for Utah State, you don't have to prepare for Robert Briggs. That was a broken bone. He had surgery already, according to Dreiling yesterday. So he is out for the season. That stinks. He is certainly one of the better running backs in the state and was very productive against Robert Morris, 9 carries, 88 yards before suffering the injury. But he is out. That's where Bryson Barnes actually has some value because he has some wheels.
I'll tell you what Utah State needs to do. They need to find out if Stinkin' Steam's actually tough. You got to go out there and punch him in the face. That's what, in his own way, Bryson Barnes did to him last year and got the win. Utah played super tough, and USC under Stinkin' has been super soft. And that's really the only way I think that Utah State has a shot because Moss appears to be the real deal for USC, and they did play tough against LSU.
They did. But let's see if Utah State's playmakers can come out there and continue to further establish themselves. I don't want to say establish themselves, but further establish themselves. But you saw how good Ark Larson is. You saw why he was such a huge talking point in the offseason for Utah State after everything they went through with Blake Anderson. He's just a difference maker. He's, he could play at any school in the country and be a difference maker. So he belongs on the field against USC. We'll see how he performs.
All right, what's next?
After getting cut last week, Tyler Huntley and Jaren Hall have jobs again. Huntley is back with the Ravens. Jaren Hall is with the Seahawks on their practice squad.
It's good to be home. Good to be home if you're Tyler Huntley. It's a good spot for him. Go back to Baltimore. Yeah, that's what you do.
Well, I mean, you continue your career, whatever. And
Yeah.
you've got a franchise that likes you. I actually wish he would prove his success not in Baltimore. Because I think right now they think he's not a quarterback. He's just a clone.
Yes. Now, he's just on the practice squad. But yeah, man, stick around long enough to get that pension. That's all you're
Well, he's not
going to
get it on the practice squad.
No.
He's got to get back onto the active roster. But
get on the active roster and get back.
Stay in. Far be it for me to criticize somebody that is keeping hope alive and chasing the pension, among other things. But I was hoping that he would prove it out somewhere else and that he would get some credit as a quarterback as opposed to just, well, he plays a lot like Lamar Jackson. Because I think both Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley, for that matter, are more than that. Does that make any sense? I think Lamar Jackson's a way better quarterback than just like the dual threat guy.
Sure, absolutely.
And I actually think Huntley's a better quarterback too, but the only reason that people will think he's staying in the league is because he's a
poor man's version of Lamar.
Right. And Jaren Hall, I'm excited for him to get a shot in Seattle because I think he might actually play there.
Okay.
Or get an opportunity to play and prove it out. It felt so bad for Jaren last year because he did get an opportunity. We're like, holy crap, Jaren Hall's starting. And he got hurt within, 8 minutes? So I'd like to see him get another crack at it, another opportunity to get on the field.
It was surprising that he got waived in the first place, but we will see, if he ends up getting this opportunity.
Well, I mean, Sam Darnold's so good.
Can't beat him.
Well, and the rookie got hurt and all that sort of thing. I don't know. Maybe they needed more. I don't know. But I'm glad both of them have found a landing spot. And I hope they both get an opportunity.
Stick around long enough to find your spot, find where you're needed. Do we know who's starting in Seattle? It is Geno.
Yeah, it's Geno.
And Sam Howell's too. So I think they've only got 2 guys. That says they're not carrying 3 quarterbacks. So Jaren will be that next man up. And there was some talk that Sam Howell was pushing Geno. So I'm excited for the NFL to start Thursday night, right? Chiefs? Chiefs who?
Chiefs Ravens.
Chiefs, Lamar. There we go. Tyler Huntley in action.
And then Eagles Packers from Brazil on Friday night.
I'm not going to watch that. I don't watch games played outside of the United States.
Really? Why Brazil, really?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. They're trying to get into South America.
Why?
Don't ask me. I mean, I get it. It's worldwide. It's worldwide viewing.
I don't understand why they're trying to get on in London either.
I don't. This is not a nationalism thing. The quality of the cameras is not as good when they go on the road. It looks different. It's got this weird fuzz over it. It's got this weird tint. They had it when they were playing Florida State and Georgia Tech in Dublin. There's a weird having to go into space and shoot it back down. Something happens. Something gets lost for me. I don't like it. It's got this weird brown tint. You're going to see it on Friday night. I hate it. Fox used to have it overall until they upgraded all their stuff. Every Fox programming used to have this weird tint. It wasn't as clear as NBC or CBS or ABC. They have since upgraded their quality. And every time, the Olympics still kind of have it some. Looked a little better in digital streaming, but something about the broadcast, it just doesn't look right to me. And it irks me in a way that I can just turn it off. I have other things to do. I'm sure there's a college football game Friday night. I will watch a bad college football game Friday night over the Brazilian NFL game.
Do playing games in these regions actually do anything? Like when the EPL teams come and play friendlies with Major League Soccer, right? Or the All-Star game or whatever is the case. Does that actually grow European soccer?
It must. I mean, soccer is growing here locally. Now, I think a lot of that has to do with the MLS, and then bringing in a guy like Messi to come in and play at Miami has to do a lot more than, yes,
but I think
Milan showed up for a friendly where none of the good players played.
But my point is the EPL is the EPL. It's popular because it's
the greatest league in the world.
Arguably. That's why it's popular. It's not popular because some random team played in Columbus, Ohio once. Does that make any sense? Like, if the NFL is going to be popular in Brazil, it's because you put it on TV. Not because you played in Rio once. You know what I mean? Like, are the Jazz more popular in Mexico City today because they played the Magic there 5 years ago or whatever?
No, in fact, the best way to get popular is to have players from those countries. If you want to build your...
yes, that makes more sense.
You want to build up your sports somewhere, have players from your country make those
Go
leagues.
find
Now,
the
that's
next-
hard to do.
Go find the next great Brazilian tailback.
But look, all of a sudden the Jazz are huge in Finland. All of a sudden, the Jazz have been huge in France. The Jazz were really big in Italy for a little while. You could look at where interactions were coming from, clicks were coming from, getting Italian traffic because of Simone Fontecchio.
But
That type of stuff
are the
helps.
Eagles going to be more popular in the NFL because they played one game there once?
Yeah, I don't know. Are you just planting seeds in the,
Or are you
3,000 kids that go watch the game?
Are you just giving a heads up to the, a shout out to the fans that are already there, which I could see that, I guess. But if I'm the Eagles, I'm like, or the Packers for that matter. If I'm Jordan Love, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm going to Brazil?
I trust that people aren't stupid. I believe people are good at their jobs. And because the NBA does this, because the NFL does this, I think the Yankees played a series in London this year. What MLB was over there, whatever, some reason they were over there. There must be a reason for doing it. I don't think they're just wasting money, but maybe they are.
Now, I'd rather play in Brazil than London.
Okay.
Because Brazil's at least what time zone are they in?
I don't know.
Is it even
How
different?
do they line up?
Yeah, it's like 1 hour difference maybe.
It's a pretty huge country.
Oh, I'm sure it's multiple time zones, but you look at Rio, it's like Eastern.
Here, we'll pull it up right now on my phone. Give me 2 seconds.
Just say, what time is it in Brazil?
Oh, I can't talk to my phone. I turned that off a long time ago. World clock. Add Brazil. This is good radio.
It is terrific. It's
1:48 p.m.
It's more than I thought.
So some of them are 3 hours ahead.
3 hours, but that's not bad.
No, that's bad. That's basically the East Coast.
Yeah, right.
A little more. But okay, so you play a little bit early here. It's a little bit later there.
Not bad. Way to go, Ben. Way to get to the bottom of that. All right, we'll have more coming up next.
Game kicks at 6:15 here, by the way. So 9:15 there.
We'll talk a lot of college football today, of course. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Your home for the best college football coverage in Utah is on the KSL Sports Zone. Ready? The Aggies hit the road to Southern California for a battle against USC. Your home for all the play-by-play coverage of Aggie football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Want to remind you about Peach Doors and Windows. Amazing home transformations begin with Peach, where 5-star reviews are the norm. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255. Peach Doors and Windows. We're going to do the Big 12 Power Poll coming up at the top of the hour. Ben, I thought this week was pretty easy.
Okay. Yeah, there's a couple teams that had some interesting results, but week one, there shouldn't be too many surprises, ideally.
Well, not with a schedule like that.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if there were any sort of controlling anything in college sports anymore, they'd
They'd regulate it.
They'd beef up non-conference schedules for teams.
Get rid of FCS opponents entirely. Now, I get it's good for FCS opponents. You got to pay the bills.
See, I don't know about... See, Ben, I don't like legislation often isn't necessary.
Okay.
How would you beef up the import of the non-conference? Because that's the problem. Just making a hard and fast rule feels like a cat in the wall. Because honestly, you ban FCS, what are you doing? Well, you're punishing those FCS programs because their athletic departments run on the payday from those games.
Right.
So you're harming that. So that's good times. Good for you. And what are these teams going to do anyway? They're just going to schedule San Jose State.
Yeah.
They're not going to schedule.
Just go to the next team.
They're not going to schedule Alabama all of a sudden because there's no point. They're going to schedule a game that they can win. So how do you? It's like the NBA. How do you actually increase the importance of the regular season? How do you increase the importance of the non-conference? Because every coach in America will tell you, Kyle, it was nice to have a an easy start. Boy, it was nice to have a warm-up game.
Yeah.
Every coach in America would do that, or does do that now, because they can.
And there are teams like Florida State right now that probably wish they had those. You know, the teams that don't do it, LSU probably wishes they had never scheduled USC.
See, you're totally right, and that's a hilarious byproduct of it, because instead of LSU coming away and going, God, we need a better football team, they come away going, wow, we should never have scheduled that game.
And I think
that's terrible.
Yeah, there's probably people listening saying, well, just do a preseason game. The problem is you won't ever believe in the results of a preseason game. Because if you're Florida State and you're playing a preseason game against whoever, DJ Uiagalelei is going to play 30 snaps, 15 snaps, and you're going to get him some reps, and you're going to say, all right, pull him out. Nothing really to learn there in the preseason anyways. And then he's going to come out and he's going to stink it up game one anyways, and you're going to say, well, we didn't learn anything from the preseason.
I think part of the great part thing about college football and high school football, for that matter, is there is no warm-up. There is no preseason. You got to be ready to go day one. And everybody, by the way, is in the deep end week one. So it's not like it's all this uneven stuff.
I agree with you.
And you just punish teams for scheduling good games. Like Utah, when they lost to Florida, that did them no... Even when they beat Florida, it didn't do them any good. You know what I mean? There's no point. There's no benefit to it.
Yeah.
So how do you incentivize non-conference?
What the college basketball system has tried to do is those in-season tournaments. They try and do these early Maui Classic or whatever the things are called. You know, the pirate ship fanatical or whatever it is in Florida. They do all those strange things. It's like, well, it generates a little bit of interest. You get some good teams playing against each other. Guess you could do that, but again, it's a cat in the wall.
But even that's hurt.
Just a cat in the wall.
And even that's hurt because these college basketball coaches schedule no one in the non-conference and then rely on those stupid tournaments to get their RPI wherever it is.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, we'll play somebody in the Maui Invitational. That'll be good enough.
Yeah.
So we'll schedule just nobody for the rest of the week.
Gonzaga's going to be there. Duke's going to be there.
What you're saying is that they've tried to make it more interesting by doing has actually hurt it.
I guess the advantage for college football is they don't have the real estate to schedule bad games outside of that. If you're playing 10 conference games.
That's 3 games.
You're right.
That's 1/4 of the schedule.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you don't have the ability to schedule outside of it. If you were to play, let's say you had a 4-team, I don't even know how you do this, a 4-team tournament for every college football team. They would play in these little 4-team tournaments. So it would be, let's say, Utah, Fresno State, Nebraska, and Cal. And you get a random matchup the first round, and if you win it, you play the winner of the other week, and then you play them. Then you only have one other week to play a nothing team. If you wanted to schedule a third non-conference team that wasn't within the schedule, maybe that works. But again, that's just it's a gimmick that you don't need. The system works. Well, it's a little goofy for the first week. It stinks, but the system's fine. It doesn't need to be fooled with.
They need to figure out what the incentive is. The incentive structure is to fix it. Why would you want to schedule these tough games? What does it do for you? And the fact that the playoff is expanded, somebody tried to make the argument to me, well, this means they'll schedule more good non-conference. No, it means they'll schedule less because you don't need impressive wins to get into the playoff. All you have to do is finish first or second in your league. That's it. So why would I play USC, LSU? What does that do for anybody? It doesn't do anything.
Yeah, this is a bit of a stick in my craw.
Well, and part of it is how they're compensated because big schools refuse to go on the road because they don't make any money because they get the gate at home. So, like you pay SU to come to Rice Eccles Stadium. Well, you pay SU whatever it is, $500,000, $1 million, whatever the payday is. Well, that's just a fraction of what you make with the gate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Whereas if you go to someplace, you've got to get that home game or you don't get any benefit whatsoever. And so nobody wants to schedule these road games. Nobody wants to go to the Swamp and play Florida. It's why I gave Utah credit for doing it at the time.
Yep. Oh, this Baylor game is good. It turned out weird because it's a Big 12 opponent. This Baylor series is awesome.
Yeah, home and home with Baylor. But there's no incentive. It doesn't do them anything.
No,
it doesn't do them any good.
We're wondering why
cares?
BYU's playing Wyoming on the road. It's like,
yes.
That's actually good for college football.
That was my first question to Tom Homo.
That's good for college football, but we wonder why.
All right. Big Pack Power Poll is coming up next. Stay tuned. Jake and Ben.
That's why we do it.
Big 12
What did we
power
say?
poll. I got to get used to that.
Big pack?
I did say that.
We could throw in Washington State.
More next.
Oregon State, sprinkle them in.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Who is climbing? Who is falling? And who just flat out stinks?
Some of y'all football sucks.
This is the Big 12 Power Poll with Jake and Ben on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, time for the Big 12 Power Poll. We do it every Tuesday here on the Jake and Ben Show. We want to remind you about the Hercules Hero of the Week. Nominate the youth sports volunteer you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week. Sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals. I just can't wait to see how high Christian had Colorado moving up.
If you own a business or something, or maybe it's just a personal loan you can get, you want to sponsor the Big 12 Power Poll. What is Big 12 Power Poll? Call Christian right now, and we'll work something out. You want to sponsor this segment? Let Christian know, and he'll either take the money or he'll put you onto somebody who can. But this is the best segment in sports anywhere on the radio across the country every week.
Don't oversell it, Ben. All right, let's get started. Don't set expectations.
Where's our music?
Low, not high.
Where's my bed?
This is the most average segment possibly ever done.
What are you talking about? This is why the station is still on air.
Again, way overselling it. All right. Who's last?
Staying at number 16, Houston.
You were a big believer in Houston last week. You had them at like 15, maybe 14.
Well, they lost.
They were terrible. They got smashed by UNLV 27-7, and it's only going to get worse for Mr. Willie Fritz and his roster. They go at Oklahoma this week.
I'm optimistic that the running Rebs are going to be good, though.
Yeah,
I never understood why UNLV wasn't at least decent.
I'm with you.
They put a couple of years together of decent football.
And they have elite high school football in their backyard.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they should absolutely be one of the better teams.
At least decent.
Like, if you just got the other kids from Bishop Gorman, you should be okay.
Right.
Just get the other kids, and you'll be fine. And they've never found a way to do that. But yeah, nice win for UNLV to start the season.
All right, next.
At 15, down from number 9 last week, is Texas Tech.
Yeah, the biggest dropper, I think, so far. Maybe second biggest dropper. And I think the biggest dropper. I tuned into the overtime of this game. Abilene Christian went for 2. Quarterback got sacked. Absolutely horrendous play. But, man, they really had a good chance to beat Texas Tech.
Sure. I have no idea, like, a close win. I mean, it came down to a lot of this for me. The league didn't prove anything. Like, how could you drop Texas Tech that far?
Well, if
They
we're just going
still
based
won.
purely on performance, that was the worst. That was the second worst performance of the opening week. No question
They
about it.
still scored 52 points.
And they gave up 51 to Abilene Christian.
Yeah, I got you.
51 points they allowed.
It's not a good performance, but, like, what is my point. What was a good performance?
Well, I would have taken, to be fair, every performance ahead of them, which is why
you had them at 15.
Yeah, you and Christian both had them at 13.
All right, what's next?
Number 14, staying at number 14 from last week, Cincinnati.
They also allowed 20 points to Towson.
Yeah.
I don't know what Towson is. But they allowed 20 points. They scored 38. But preseason expectations mixed with kind of what they showed on film was not great yet.
Is that a better performance than Texas Tech against Abilene Christian? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't give up 51 points. It's a 31-point difference. Now you also scored.
But you have no idea how good Towson or Abilene Christian is.
Hey,
Abilene
why
Christian
are you yelling
maybe.
at me? I had Cincinnati at 11. You had them at 15. What are you yelling at me for?
They
You
still
had them as the
stink.
second worst team.
They still stink. That's my point. It doesn't prove the all. Anyway, what's next?
By the way, they're at home against Pitt this week. And we should mention Texas Tech at Washington State. Texas Tech is going to get blown out by Washington State.
Number 13, down from number 10 last week, TCU.
They beat Stanford 34-27. Needed a score late and needed a stop late.
But beat an
ACC
actual
team.
football team on the road.
I don't know. Have you watched Stanford play for the last 2 years?
I
don't know
hear
if I'd
you,
call them an
and
actual
I
football
don't
team.
think Troy Taylor is great. But here you're beefing up Abilene Christian. Anyway.
And not paying any respect to
Stanford whatsoever.
Well, TCU is going to beat Long Island this weekend, and they'll be 2-0.
Christian had TCU 15.
They didn't look good.
They won on the road.
Yeah, they
Christian.
did.
It was more so about everybody from 14 through 10 winning. I don't know.
It's hard.
It is hard. This is my first year doing
We're
this.
early in the power poll.
Christian. Oh, no,
We're going to overreact early.
That joke. All right. They're playing Long Island.
They'll beat Long Island. They'll be 2-0.
What's next?
Number 12 down from number 11 last week, Colorado. 4, I want to put this out there for the record. Jake and I both had Colorado at 11.
I had them at 13. They beat North Dakota State. They were down at the half, if I remember correctly. Had to come back and win it. You needed Travis Hunter to be a superhero. Luckily, he is. He's one of the 2 or 3 best players in college football.
Ben, I think you miscalculated and added a 1 because I'm looking at the sheet right now, and Christian had Colorado at 1.
Yeah, Christian had him
I
down
think
at
you
1.
accidentally added a 1.
Let's see. Christian, what did you have, Matt?
Christian
you
had
11.
him at 1. Look, I'm looking right at it.
I know. I saw it. Let's see. No, I got it right. Something got deleted there in the mixture. Yes, Christian had him
Look,
at 11.
it's back again. He got it. It's Christian had him at 1.
Jake's messing with our spreadsheet. North Dakota State's a good team,
No, they're not.
but
They're no
Colorado
Abilene
struggled with them
Christian.
at home, and I didn't see anything from Colorado that makes me think that I have a lot of confidence in them going forward, that they're going to be able to make a bowl game. They are at Nebraska this weekend. We'll get a much better taste of whether or not Colorado has improved from last season.
Have
My
you
early
seen
take,
Nebraska play these last couple of years? Is that even true? I mean, if you're going to say that about Stanford.
Scott Frost, where did he just get a job? Is it the Rams? He just got hired by somebody in the NFL.
But Matt Rule's a good coach, kind of. Do we know?
I think Schefter put out the tweet about Scott Frost getting the job, and he said, Scott Frost, who went 13-0 at, where was he, Central Florida? South Florida? Where was Scott Frost? South Florida? Went 13-0 at South Florida and was also the coach at Nebraska. Totally glossed over that he was a disaster. That was some PR work there from Shefty.
What's
Anyways,
next?
Colorado at Nebraska this weekend. That's a good game.
Number 11, up from number 15 last week, Arizona State.
They smashed Wyoming.
Yeah, Wyoming's not good.
Yeah, Wyoming might be terrible, but Arizona State did what you need to against another D1 team.
I would guess this will be the high water mark for Arizona State.
They beat Wyoming 48-7.
And had them all the way up to 10.
They looked good. I really thought they looked a lot better. They could fall again, though, because this weekend they host Mississippi State, who's good.
Yeah, they're going to lose that. Again, I think this will be the high water mark for Arizona State.
I think that's fair.
All right, next.
Another big faller down from number 6. At number 10, we have West Virginia.
West Virginia, who lost to Penn State.
They might catch up with the team everyone expected them to be last year, but at least they played a real team. Again, this goes back to our conversation, should you just schedule a nobody to start the year? They played a real team in Penn State, and they looked bad as a result. But they were 6 last week. They drop all the way to 10. They play Albany this weekend.
I put the wrong number in for West Virginia, or somebody manipulated it.
You had them at 14.
No, I had them at 9. But we can have them at 14.
Okay.
All right, what's next?
Number 9, Baylor, up from number 13.
Well, they crushed Tarleton State.
Yeah, what Baylor did. Why are they
45 to
getting
3.
bumped up?
I guess I did have them at 9. I did bump them up a little bit. Just
Christian
because,
had them at 8.
Yeah, Christian's big on Dave Aranda.
I had them at 13.
I think they're going to get smoked by the Utes. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think Utes big.
Well, we'll see. They beat him last year with no quarterback.
Yeah, on the road.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
Next up, we have BYU, up from number 12 last week. They are at number 8 this week.
They probably could have been higher. I think this is fair for BYU, though. Middle of the pack.
Yeah, I don't think I would have had BYU any higher.
Everybody else basically was in a blowout win here for the rest of the way. So where were you projected before the season, and how did you perform in week 1? BYU, I will say, slightly exceeded expectations from week 1. I'm not going to read too much into beating up on Southern Illinois. You should have beat up on Southern Illinois, and you did. At SMU this weekend, one of the better games in the Big 12.
I think they should beat SMU.
I think so, too.
They're such big underdogs.
Hey, BYU should have gone into the season expecting to beat SMU.
All right, what's next?
Still at number 7 from last week, Iowa State.
They beat North Dakota 21-3, which I could have predicted that score exactly. I should have written that down. I know exactly how many points Iowa State's going to score every week. It's between 19 and 22. So 21 is right on schedule, and they always have a good defense. So 3 points makes sense against a bad team in North Dakota, but now they play their rival on the road at Iowa.
That is an example of a good coach at a bad job.
Campbell at Iowa State?
Yeah.
Okay.
Iowa State is a terrible job. And he's been the best coach in their program history, and he hasn't really won that much.
I'm surprised he hasn't springboarded off. He was the hot name for a while. They kind of dipped, but...
Well, I can tell you why,
again this
because
season.
what he does doesn't necessarily work at other programs.
I wonder if he would do better with better recruiting. Of course. Now he's got to do better recruiting. Got to prove that he could do that wherever he goes.
Everybody wondered that about Mike Leach. I think Mike Leach had to be at a small program. I don't think Mike Leach works at a big program.
I think there's more wit in Matt Campbell, though, than... I mean, obviously, I know you're not comparing him. Obviously, they're two completely different types of coaches, but you're talking about kind of the gimmick of Mike Leach's offense and the gimmick of Matt Campbell being Superman defensively.
And by the way, I don't think Utah is an elite job.
Okay.
I think Witt has won more than the job would
Lend
equate.
itself to. Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's fair.
All right, next.
Number 6, up from number 8 last week, Central Florida.
Hung a lot of points on New Hampshire, 57-3. They're going to beat up on Sam Houston this weekend. They'll move to 2-0, and we're not going to know anything about Central Florida for a while.
Still don't. We don't know. Seriously, we don't know anything about all these teams.
Yeah, it's one game in.
Next.
Number 5, down from number 4 last week, Arizona.
I'm worried about the defense. Tab McMillan's incredible. Fafita's awesome. I mean, that might be the best quarterback wide receiver duo in the country, not just in the Big 12, but in the country overall. I'm sure there are people at Alabama that would have something to say about that. I don't think it's Will Howard at Ohio State, despite the fact that they've got so much talent on the edge, or at wide receiver, I should say. But, man, that is potent offensively. But they really struggled getting stops against New Mexico, and maybe Broncos got that team playing a little bit better offensively, but they were not getting stops in the first half of that game, and maybe they're just a little bit soft.
Here's something we're going to have to adjust to, Ben. You do not have to have a defense to win in the Big 12, historically speaking. So, I don't know, like you look at Arizona offensively and being electric, you can win that way in the Big 12.
You can. Can you win everything that way in the Big 12?
Absolutely.
You think you can
TCU
win?
did it 2 years ago.
Okay.
And that Kansas State team that beat them in the championship game, they weren't any plum defensively either.
Okay, that's fair. I'll listen to it.
Next.
Number 4, up from number 5 last week, we have Kansas.
Ben had them at 1.
Well, they beat Lindenwood, and I really respect the Lindenwood program. So I thought that was a big win for them. No, Kansas stomped them 48-3. I had them at number 4 overall. They're good. They've got to stay healthy at quarterback. As does everybody, but that's particularly relevant. At Kansas, they are at Illinois this weekend. A much better taste.
Next.
No change in the top 3. At 3,
Spoiler
we have
alert.
Kansas State.
Beat UT Martin 41-6 on the road at Tulane this weekend.
It'll be more of a test, I guess, but yeah.
Christian had them at number 2. You and I both had them at number 3.
Next.
Number 2, Oklahoma State.
Beat South Dakota State, Ben, 44-20.
They did give up 20. I'm curious to see how they play against Arkansas this weekend. They are at home. Maybe Jaquindon Jackson does some damage to Oklahoma State. Get a preview of what to look for as Utah gets ready to play them coming up in Week 4 on the road.
I guarantee old Gundy's thinking, why on earth did we schedule
Why are we
Arkansas?
playing Arkansas?
We should be playing another Green Puff. What are we doing?
Yeah, this is a nobody team. Arkansas's okay. They won their opening game, obviously. We'll see how they play, but that's a fun matchup. Big 12, SEC, with some relevant names.
All right, and
Still at number 1, Utah.
you have voted them 2 again,
2.
Ben.
I had them 2 last week. I've got them 2 now. Oklahoma State won was in the conference championship game last year. Obviously, Texas won it overall, but Oklahoma State I thought was really good last year, was better than Utah was last year. I understand all the injuries at Utah caused part of that, but that's why I have Utah at 2. Utah is the only team to pitch a shutout in the opening weekend, and they do have a real opponent this weekend in Baylor. I expect them to blow them out, which, you know what, I don't feel confident saying that about Oklahoma State, so maybe I should have put Utah at number 1 just based on expectations of what they'll do in Week 2.
If Utah finds a run game, really look out. But they should have the tools to be the best. They have again, I hate these determinations week one, but it seems to me like they have the most talent in the conference. If you look at the complete team, offense, defense, it seems like they have the most talent in the conference to me. You know that they're going to be well coached. If they don't find a run game, that might be somewhat problematic. If the line underachieves, that might be problematic in a game off basis. But if they put it together, I think they'll beat the Cowboys next month if they put it all together.
I don't know anything about this Utah football team, only what I saw on television, and I can't remember how to pronounce this man's name, but I think the way they were saying it on TV is Tanuvasa?
I think that's it. Nailed it.
Keanu Tanuvasa looks like the next superstar at D-tackle at Utah, and he's only a sophomore, and that's already playing next to Junior Tafuna, who is a star. Yeah, who is going to the NFL.
And Lander Barton's back, and Karini Reed is awesome, and all the things.
Their defense is really good.
Suffered a hit at corner, obviously, but always had a lot of talent at that position. You know, the Whit mentioned Smith Snowden going to have a bigger role, and he played great.
Sounds like he
in week
gets moved
one
to the outside.
Yeah,
sounds like that's what he's going to do. And then the nice thing is you have a star at Brant Keithy. Brant Keithy is a legit star. You can catch 3 touchdown passes in the first half. We talk about Travis Hunter. We talk about McMillan. You need to have an answer offensively and a difference maker, and Keithy is that player. He is so good, and he makes plays after the catch. He's not just a tight end who's big and a safe target. He catches the ball, and then he does something with it, which is very rare for a tight end. Really easy for Cam Rising. And then, if somebody jumps out at running back and becomes a guy, Utah is by far the most complete team.
At least it appears that way to me.
Yep, I agree with you.
Yep. All right, there you go. Christian, you want to do a review?
Starting at number 1, we have Utah, then Oklahoma State, Kansas, Arizona, Central Florida, Iowa State, BYU, Baylor, West Virginia, Arizona State, Colorado, TCU, Cincinnati, Texas Tech, and Houston.
All right, there we go. I wonder if Houston will be in the bottom for the rest of the season.
It's going to be hard to work their way out. Yeah, I think there's a really strong chance that that's the case.
They lose out?
Yep.
I really miss ranking dogs like Cal. I mean, that was always fun to rank them low.
Colorado, Baylor, Cal, Stanford was always
near the bottom.
Always fun last year.
Cal. Imagine passing up Oregon to stay at that job. Whoops. I really shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
All right, stay tuned. We'll have more Jake and Ben coming up next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Your home for the best college football coverage in Utah is on the KSL Sports Zone. Ready, hot! The Cougars hit the road for a huge matchup against SMU. Your home for the best coverage of Cougar football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Want to remind you about First and 12, Sunday from 10 to noon, brought to you by Macy's Grocery Store. Get the freshest fruits and vegetables from local farms and your favorite local brands. Macy's. Happy shopping. College football, of course, big topic on the show today. Ben, you want to talk a little bit about the Utes and their new weapon?
One of the things I think we're still trying to figure out with Utah that I will certainly be paying attention to against Baylor is the running game and what that continues to evolve and look like for the Utes. And I thought the standout, no question for Utah, other than Cam Rising and Brant Keithy, was Dijon Stanley. Here's what Whit said yesterday about Dijon Stanley. I think we can talk about it.
Well, he sure was productive Thursday night and was a big play guy for us. I don't think he's quite yet ready for every down type of a back, but he certainly will have an expanded package as the season goes on if he continues to have the impact that he did. Did everything really well in the game Thursday night, nearly 200 yards of offense, receiving and rushing, and so he's a weapon for us. At least he was in that first game, and if we can create some more big chunk yardage plays with him in the future, that's that could be a niche that he could fill for us this year.
He's just not very big, and that's got to be an area where Mekhi Bernard is really good, providing additional support, protecting Cam. That's got to be the issue. for Dijon Stanley. Utah would love to name a starter that they are comfortable with going forward.
Yeah, it's not him, though.
I don't think so.
Well, Whit.
Yeah, Whit just said right
Whit
now it's
just
not.
called him a niche guy.
Yeah. I think they could find ways to get him more involved if he could clean up by probably some of those things you have to do that are the less sexy parts of being a running back. It's really sexy to go and run wheel routes and catch balls out of the backfield and score touchdowns and be super fast. You've got to be able to do a little bit more than that.
Well, yeah, because we can all agree that route is not going to be open ever again.
Yeah, right. That's done. We've seen the last of that.
We can all agree that, and that in and of itself is an advantage because you make the defense have to adjust to something. So the fact that that's on film does make a difference. He's not. I mean, he's. Well, let me think. Sprinkles. He's
okay. He's gravy.
He's gravy.
Yeah.
Icing on the cake. If you've got it, that's nice. But he's not. I mean, he's not the dude. I really felt for Mike Mitchell just dropping the ball because that was
it's a huge setback.
A huge setback.
Yeah.
I think he's the guy based on what we were talking about with Bartle and that sort of thing. But he just drops the ball, and then that's such an emphasis on that team. He's just not going to have a good game.
He will get another chance against Baylor. Whit usually isn't one chance and you're done. I think he'll get another chance if he puts the ball on the ground again.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be 4 weeks before you see it.
if Tavion Thomas, again, proved anything, is that you can make a bounce back, but that's the fastest way out of the rotation is by dropping the ball. So I don't know. Stanley's interesting in the fact that we didn't know, really about him or about, his potential, and he's certainly an incredible athlete. But I don't think he's really an answer for anything. If anything, with Bernard, he's Bernard's replacement.
And he might be. He might just be that dual threat out of the backfield that has the ability to make plays wherever you want to get him the ball, and you have to drop ways to get him the ball. It is notable that he got 6 carries. He did lead the team in attempts rushing. So he may be that guy who is not technically like your first down back or your second down back, but does get a lot of opportunities and does get a lot of carries.
I certainly don't mean this in any sort of demeaning way to Britton Covey at all, but Britton was never going to be your number one on the outside type of receiver, but he was an electric enough athlete that from day one you had to find a way to use him. I feel similarly about Stanley. He's a great athlete. You'd be foolish not to use him, but he's never going to be your number one back because he's just not built that way.
Yeah, he needs to add weight. It says he's listed at 6 foot 185. I never really believed those.
But you add weight, you take away from what makes him special.
Sure.
So
can he be Joe Williams, who was 6 feet tall or 5'11" and 205? Can he become that type of player? Because Joe Williams was a game breaker, and those types of guys.
He had great speed.
There's no replacement for great speed.
At no point was Joe Williams that slight.
No, he was not. No, he was much chunkier than that.
Yeah. And it still took a lot for him to be the number one guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think Stanley's interesting, but, Utah has to you say has to. I actually don't know if they do, but you would think a Kyle Whittingham coach team has to find the guy at running back, the workhorse, the 25-carry guy, because that's what they've done in the past. And guys like Bubba Poole have been interesting contributors, but they're not that key component.
Yeah.
So Utah will run him on those wheel routes all day because now you have to guard it. But I don't know if he's going to all of a sudden – he's not Ty Jordan. He's not the freshman that's going to just grab the job.
No, he's not.
And run with it and be the dude to the point where the rest of the room transfers because they're like, I'm not that good.
And those gimmicks are useful. You can find ways to do it. In a lot of ways, Britton Covey was a gimmick. Utah found a lot of ways to get him the ball, and he was certainly slight and was not somebody who was going to help in pass protection at all. And that was not what he was out there to do.
Well, do you remember against Washington when they tried to make him the number one receiver? He nearly lost his life.
They killed him.
Yeah.
They tried to bury that man.
Yeah.
And they basically did.
He wasn't the same again after that season. He wasn't the same again after that.
Yeah.
It's not who they are. But Utah has been good at finding roles for those types of players.
And there's a lot of, you can do all sorts of different gimmick plays or sweeps to get him involved.
If Utah has a weakness, it's that it's if the line underperforms and if they fail to find a true running back. And that might not even do them in because they didn't find a true running back last year and they somehow won 8 games. with no quarterback and no running back. They moved a safety to running back out of desperation and somehow won 8 games.
Here's Kyle Whittingham talking about the running back room overall.
I thought we played a fairly clean game. There are some things that we can do better, as there is every single week. Thought we ran the ball just okay. We had 185 yards rushing, but we like to get that 5 yards a carry statistic, and we were just shy of that.
So,
yeah, it was just okay.
180 yards is plenty. Probably could have used a little bit more against Southern Utah because of the opponent.
180 yards against Oklahoma State is plenty.
Yeah, right. Now, it also hurt that Dijon Stanley had 150 yards on 3 catches. You just didn't have the opportunities to give the ball to Jalen Glover, in all honesty. Maybe you could have seen it a little bit more. They scored so fast every time in the first half, you didn't get to see enough of it.
Well, Jalen Glover, yards per carry is, if that's what they're going to base it on, that is not his strength.
No, we're talking about college kids here, so I really try and be delicate with it. If it was going to be Jalen Glover, it would have been Jalen Glover last year. Or
I would have
2 years ago.
Right. Well, certainly last year. I don't know about 2, but
he's just always kind of been the guy, and you get your crack. Utah is always willing. Going back to Ty Jordan, Utah will give you your opportunity, even if you're a freshman. If you're good, you will get the opportunity to get the rock. And he's had a lot of opportunities, and it's just, you can tell. You can see the guys who have it and the guys who don't, and he just never quite had it at the level Utah has grown to expect, which is why when you saw Jaquindon Jackson do it, after 1 week, you kind of realize, there's something different there. That guy can do it, and he's going to get a real opportunity to play. And then you saw the same thing with Tavion Thomas once he actually got the ball. You knew Zach Moss had it really quickly. It's Sione Vake last year. You recognize, there's something different there. There's something different in the way he sees the field, hits the hole, gets upfield. It's different, and you've never seen that from Jalen Glover ever.
No, but you got to find it from someone.
Yeah.
If they're going to be if they're going to win the league, maybe they can win the league without it. That's certainly not how Witt wants to win, though. He'd have to get way out of his comfort zone.
Yeah. But Mike Mitchell maybe is the guy. Maybe he just needs a couple more reps and, needs to work on ball security.
Without looking at it, Ben, do you know how many times Utah threw the ball against SUU?
Cam threw it 15 times. Isaac Wilson probably threw it 12? 27?
26.
Okay.
Shadur Sanders threw it 26 times in the first half of the first quarter.
First drive.
So, Utah does not want to throw the ball 45 times a game.
No,
that's not how they want to win. I suppose they could, I guess, but I don't think that's what they want to do. And then the line, I like watching Cam Rising peel himself up off the turf on play 1 is not great. So they need to perform. Overperform.
Mike Mitchell getting 6 carries and Dijon Stanley getting 6 carries, I think is interesting. Clearly,
Mike Mitchell didn't play well. He didn't. He didn't have a good game. A drop aside, he didn't play well.
Yeah, he got in the end zone, but did not have a huge outing. But I do think that's a sign that Utah is trying to figure out which one of those 2 players will get those opportunities.
Well, I don't think so. I don't think it will be Stanley.
Yeah, he's going to do his thing. He's never going to be the lead guy. Certainly not this year. Maybe next year he puts on some weight and we'll see, you mature and your body changes. Mitchell has more of that body already.
I think if there's people vying for the job still, it's Mitchell and Glover.
And then you find more and more ways to get Dijon involved without being that type of back.
Yeah, he's a hybrid, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Which they should use him. If he's the fastest guy on the team.
Yeah, those guys have value.
And obviously, if there's no one in the same county as him, he can catch the ball. I don't know if, contested catches, we'll find out. But if he's streaking down the sideline all by his lonesome, he's going to catch it.
Yeah. But the nice thing is you can draw plays also just to get him in a little bit of space, even if he's still in the backfield, and say, go make a play. And he's fast enough to do that. So some advantages, some ways Utah can probably, frost over it for now until they're able to find actually the heart of what that offense is going to look like.
All right, stay tuned. We'll wrap up the show. Coming up next, Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Your home for the best college football coverage in Utah is on the KSL Sports Zone. Ready, It's a Saturday matinee battle for the Utes as they welcome in Baylor to Rice-Eccles Stadium. Your home for the best coverage of Utah football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Two amigos on the airways, talking sports. They got a matrix and also loves this tie-dye. Ben's got style with his scars. Oh my.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake, Scott, Ben, Anderson. This segment is brought to you by Peach Doors and Windows. Amazing home transformations begin with Peach, where 5-star reviews are the norm. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255. Ben, you're much more up-to-date on the Snap Talk world culture online shenanigans. What is going on with this Florida State person who bet something? What happened?
What was his name? Judge on Twitter. I found this last night too. Said he would eat a red Solo cup full of dog stuff if Florida State lost to Boston College.
Of dog poo. If Florida State lost to Boston College, which they did.
Which they did. And fall to 0-2. And immediately, he said he would film it and post it on Twitter. And immediately deleted his Twitter account as soon as they, at least as soon as Florida State lost, maybe even earlier. Maybe at halftime on that first drive from DJ Uyunglele where, they'd scored a field goal before the half. You thought, okay, they're putting it together. They'll be fine. They're going to beat Boston College in the second half. And then he comes out and throws one of the worst interceptions you'll ever see. Just like off his back foot, dropping back, fourth down. I get you're giving yourself and your team a chance, but didn't throw it close to anybody. But yeah, this guy. And now he's being hunted by the Twitter people to live up to his.
Leave this guy alone. False bravado and hyperbole are exactly that. I've heard crazy fans say a million things. If there's one thing that Kevin Graham betting his life that BYU would not beat Oklahoma in Jerry World,
and then not beat Texas,
and BYU beat Oklahoma, it's just leave these people alone. It's all right. This moron Florida State fan got out of hand. I've seen it a zillion times.
What was that, 11 years ago, right? Because it was after the Virginia game. Didn't you just talk about the Virginia game being on your anniversary?
When they beat Oklahoma, it was before that.
No, they lost to Virginia, excuse me.
Right.
And then they beat Texas the next week because they had lost to Virginia, looked terrible, and then came out and I think beat Texas the next weekend. That would have been 11 years ago to the day, close to that, right around that area. So, yeah. Kevin's been in the ground for 11 years. R.I.P. Kevin Graham. But always good to have him call in every once in a while.
So anyway, forgive the false bravado guy on Twitter. They're just morons. That's it. Don't try to hunt this moron down. He's just a moron.
It is.
He was never going to do that. He's just an idiot.
This is the tweet. If Florida State loses to BC this weekend, I will eat dog stuff out of a red Solo cup with a spoon and post a video of me doing it. Book it.
Book it.
Book it. Well, don't say that and then not do it. Don't say that and then delete your account.
You can't say book it and then not do it.
Yeah, you can't say book it.
You can tweet it out and then not do it, but if you say book it, you have to do it.
And by the way, the reason this has picked up so much is because like RG3 has retweeted it with the graphic because this guy has disappeared. Now, someone said they did find him. This guy's Twitter handle is 321Nole, N-O-L-E, for the Seminoles. So they have found this guy. Someone says they actually have his name. Of course, they're not going to dox him, nor would we ever do that, certainly. But that's a fun part of college football. And look, it's fun to beat up on Florida State. This is a team that has a lot of bravado, was good last year, was mad that they got left out of the college football playoff, despite the fact that their quarterback had gotten hurt, and he was a main reason for their success, or a big part of their success. Started out as a double-digit favorite each of the last 2 weeks. There's been 3 teams, or 3 games that have been double-digit favorites that were losses, including your beloved Virginia Tech to Vandy. And Florida State's on the wrong end of both, 2 of them, 2 of the 3. So it's been a disastrous start there. The end of DJ Uyunglele's career.
Hey,
at least as a potential pro.
May you ever be so lucky to be labeled as a 5-star quarterback, because you keep getting chance after chance after chance.
Oh, and I'm sure Florida State paid him.
Sure, they paid him a ton.
He probably got a good chunk of money. Oregon State was good last year. He was not the reason.
Somewhere, JT Daniels is still making $1 million a year.
Yeah.
Or Jack Sears.
Floating around. Who was the kid who went to USC and ended up playing at like 5 different colleges? Played at Georgia.
JT Daniels.
Was it JT Daniels?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm mixing up all the talented
Or
USC
Keaton
quarterbacks.
Slovis.
Keaton,
right. You know, Gordon Monson wrote a column after they played against BYU that he was going to
the next superstar,
be a Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah,
I mean,
amazing.
seriously, I would bribe the 24/7 sports bozo so much money just to make me a 5-star quarterback because you never lived that down. I'd say I'll give you 40% of my cut if you just make me a 5-star guy.
Yeah, I'm looking back at this list of.
You never have to be good.
No,
and
it's
you
amazing.
get chance after chance after chance.
Matt Fink, Keaton Slovis, JT Daniels, Jackson Dart. I forgot Jackson Dart started there. Yeah, Miller Moss now starting. Caleb Williams, obviously.
And Jackson Dart wasn't even the 5-star guy. And
No, he
he
wasn't.
arguably played really well at USC. He was just a casualty of the fingernails transfer.
And they were 0-3 when he started, but it was not his fault. So, yeah, you just keep getting paid. It's not a bad world if you're a 5-star recruit.
It's because people are lazy. No, I'm not even kidding.
No,
it's because people are 100% lazy. Oh, one person said this person was good. You see it in recruiting all the time. Not to refer to our boy Gunther all the time, but he'll tell you, like, as soon as he got an offer from Utah, the rest of the Mountain West Conference all of a sudden offered him, like the next day.
Yep.
And so it's this crazy thing where nobody actually knows if anybody's any good. And so, well, man, if Florida State's all over this guy, he must be really something. I mean, it comes back to Nick Saban saying, yeah, they have a $20 million roster, but who are you spending that $20 million on? You know, I will say this about Nick Saban. He knew a good player when he was looking at it.
Yep,
and even he wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
And certainly wasn't 100% at the quarterback position. But it's such an inexact science, but it's so frustrating. Like, Florida State didn't watch him play last year at Oregon State because he was really average at Oregon State on a team that had the best run game in the league.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't have been surprised that Keaton Slovis wasn't great last year, right?
100%. We had seen him play before.
But everybody was like, oh, Keaton Slovis, I've heard of that guy.
Yeah, you're generally better off, I guess, hoping on an unknown, like maybe Cam Rising, who just didn't get the opportunity and had lost the job at Texas, to, you know, a more experienced quarterback, and then moves over and tries somewhere new, you know, gets a second start without really ever having proven themselves. Rarely do you see that guy ever come back out of nowhere. Like, again, it's why kind of Bohannon winning the job at BYU this year would have been a bit of a red flag. It's like, he's never been that guy. Well, he had been really early at Baylor, but hasn't been that guy since. Yeah, the odds that he was going to turn into something magical or be any different than the path that we saw from Keaton Slovis was unlikely.
I'd say where Utah or Kyle Whittingham, you could say this about other people, though, have really had their vision is young, skinny guys that you think like, okay, this guy can put on 30 pounds and play this position. Sir, that's a 180-pound safety. Yeah, well, give me a year and he'll be a D end. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because Alabama's not doing that. They're just recruiting the D end. Most schools are just recruiting the position or whatever, don't have that.
Yeah.
And that's where Utah is not going to get 5-star guys. And basically, I would say, doesn't want them. That's not how that all the Witt can sell his, you're going to adjust to us, not us adjust to you. You can sell that to 3 stars. You can't sell it to 5 stars.
Yeah, Utah would take every 5-star recruit, but
I don't know that they would.
They would take every 5-star recruit. Of course they would. They've never had one. They would take every 5-star recruit they could get, but their sell does not work on the 5-star kids, like you're saying.
Yeah. Well, who's making them 5-star? That's again. Why are we so reliant on that? I don't think they would take every 5-star. I don't think that's true.
Well, they've never landed one, so. Yeah, until we know, I guess we don't know. But, yeah, they've never landed a 5-star recruit. They've offered a lot.
I don't know.
I don't know if it's worth their time pursuing these kids that are such long shots to end up on campus at Utah. Maybe that's the hard part for the Utes.
All right, coming up next, Hanson, Scotty G. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Jake
Thanks,
and Ben,
Christian.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.